Macho John Madden, Juanito on the edge of the Acoma Pueblo. I have added more light to this video because I no longer need, for teaching purposes, to be talking in the dark like I did in that last video. And in that last video, I described my relationship with a new friend named Andreas, who is addicted to angry and fearful thoughts. I told the story about how George Gurdjieff required P.D. Ouspensky, before he could be a student of his, to give up smoking, to beat his addiction to smoking. And Ouspensky came back a year later clean, and Gurdjieff offered him a cigarette, which totally blew his mind. And Gurdjieff said, "Nothing wrong with smoking. It's your addiction. You had to lick your addiction, and you did, so that's great. But now you can smoke." So lots of people think you can't smoke. Lots of people think it's terrible, the worst thing in the world. And I've heard smart nighttime comics, Seth Meyers or somebody, one of those guys said, "Well, we all know now that smoking is bad and you shouldn't smoke." And that's wrong. That's wrong. Smoking is very helpful to artists and people who need to be more grounded, like myself. I am one of the few, if maybe not the only person, who is conscious of the fact that cigarettes saved my life when I had the COVID. I would have died if I hadn't gotten access to cigarettes, and here's why. I was sexually abused as a child for several years, quite violently. I got good at leaving my body. I would float up above the forest preserve where my uncle was sodomizing me and just look down and be very peaceful. In psychologists, we call that, there was a psychological term. I'm a PhD psychologist, and I used to know the term. Maybe it'll come back. It's not detachment. It's much worse than that. And when I turned into a mystic 5 years ago, when I had a big spiritual experience and totally went back to God, I noticed in the country one morning I was walking along the French Broad River north of Asheville, North Carolina, the same mighty river that created the terrible flooding that wiped out whole towns. I spent a lot of time camped in my camper van alongside that river, and one morning about 4 in the morning, I was walking along the river and realized I wasn't in my body anymore. I had filled the whole valley there. I said, "Whoa, this is scary." Pretty wonderful, but kind of scary. And then that experience kept happening more and more, and now I can do it kind of at will. And when I got the COVID, I was so sick. I spent 14 days so sick I was sure I was going to die. And friends on the phone would say, "Well, some people don't." When you get the COVID, a lot of people get so sick, you've never been that sick in your life, and you think you're going to die, but a lot of people don't actually, and that was hopeful. But what I was noticing was it was such a miserable experience, and my consciousness stayed good. I stayed happy most of the time. But I was noticing that I was slipping out of my body. Day by day, I was less and less in my body, and I thought, oh, it's just going to be way too easy for you to leave your body because it's a terrible place to be right now. And I had run out of cigarettes, so I said to my friend Lee on the phone, I have to have money to get cigarettes. I was staying way up on a mountaintop in a little basement apartment I was renting to get out of the cold in Appalachia in February. I have to get cigarettes or I'm leaving. Bye-bye. And I had all the preparations in place. I had people ready to come out and pick up my dog. I had signed over my car to my landlord. So Lee sent me money. And I went to town and got cigarettes and lived. And I'm almost positive I would not have otherwise. Now the CDC and Center, all those people are going to have a hard time making use of that story because they've invested millions of dollars terrifying people about cigarettes. You've been barking up the wrong tree, folks. That was a big waste of money, and you fucked with people. The U.S. the way the Trumpers are right is that the U.S. government systematically fucks with people in ways they never should, like the way they teach all parents and all teachers to train kids to be afraid of strangers. That didn't happen in Mexico. And as a result, the kids and the adults are way happier and less afraid of strangers. Yeah. And the current hysteria about deporting all these strange little brown people, yeah, it wouldn't be so easy if you hadn't trained everybody in America to be afraid of strangers. Really, the government did that. So when the Trumpers say Big Brother is reaching his end, making us wear seatbelts, fuck you! Don't tell me to wear a seatbelt. That's my choice. My policy in my camper vans was, yeah, you can wear a seatbelt if you want. You fucking find it. I don't. No, I don't use them. No, because I hate them. Government doesn't have a right to tell you that shit. No.